Okay. All right. So let me see how things are looking. Okay. So Snick Sabers is in the building over here in the chat. Welcome, Snicks. How's it going? Let's see. Is this a new starting soon screen? It's only going to be for this particular series that I'm developing, that I'm curating, if you will. Other than that, no, not really. It's not going to be like the regular one. Otherwise, we're gonna go ahead and get started here. I know that this isn't gonna exactly be a show that people are instantly gonna frolic to, but I'm trying something new. I'm trying something new. I'm trying out a new outlet because I figured, you know what, everybody plays video games here on Twitch. Let's try to go with something new. Let's try to develop something a bit more on the creative side, which is why I went with creative as the category or section or template for this particular type of stream. So, welcome to this whole endeavor. Considering that we're all kind of stuck inside and we're not able to really do as much as we can, or be as just frankly just as passionate about certain things, considering how many limitations we have right now with the current COVID-19 situation. I figured that I would take this kind of platform that I've been liking an awful lot with Twitch, with live streaming, that I prefer more so than I do with doing videos. That I do like the creative process of making videos, editing content, doing things like that. I might still do a little bit of that on the side, but streaming for me is practically where it's at, because I just have a much more interactive experience with audiences, with community members, things like that. And one of those communities that I kind of want to start stringing to is film, for the film community, whether it be with film Twitch, film Twitter, film Instagram, whatever hashtag you want to name it as. I want to go with something brand new to bring to the channel. One of those brand new shows is going to be this one called Film Student School, in parentheses. And basically what it is, it's an idea that popped into my head after a couple of things. One is that recently I've been watching an awful lot of masterclasses that have been going around online. There's an awful lot of masterclass commercials that you often get as ads in front of YouTube videos, prevalent in YouTube videos. And some of them are from musicians, recording artists, chefs, and of course, I think the main focus of some of those master classes are actually from the spectrum of film, with directors like Martin Scorsese and Ron Howard, and then you get screenwriters like David Mamet and Aaron Sorkin. And I've been recently watching the Ron Howard one, so I would watch different segments of his master classes talking about what it's like for him to start off as a director, start off as being an actor, and trying to take some of those characteristics over to directing, and then doing different things to kind of get his name out there, and then just breaking down the process of what it's like to make a film, and kind of sharing some of that knowledge. So that was one aspect of creating this show for Twitch. The other one was that because of the situation with the COVID-19, I am a film student, but unfortunately, I cannot step foot on the campus that is very, very obviously closed with the situation. So all of our classes are being treated remotely. I'm taking two classes right now, both on Mondays, and they're both done through either something called Big Blue Button, which is kind of like this conference thing within a website called Canvas that makes it a little bit more unified to kind of share worksheets and assignments and quizzes and things like that, while at the same time hosting conferences. At least the teacher would host conferences and get people to either chime in with their microphone or via chat. And then recently, one of my other teachers started using Zoom. Zoom is becoming very, very popular recently with the crisis that we're in, because a lot of people need to make conferences, need to make meetings, and Zoom is becoming one of those spaces where people either can create an account to host meetings, or maybe they just want to join a meeting and they could just do so by sharing the key, and they could just kind of be ported in. I didn't want to use Zoom or any other kind of platform except Twitch, because I've already handled Twitch a fair amount for at least the past, I want to say, about a year and a half, that has been spent mostly over to gaming. Obviously I would play games on my Twitch channel here. I still play games here. I still have a regular schedule where I'm playing several different games, so if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. But I'm trying to make it a staple And by the way, thank you for the compliments, Nick, about my suit and tie. I want to keep things a little formal around here to just kind of give this thing its different flavor, its different tone. But one of the things that I want to start doing every Thursday night, hopefully every Thursday night, 7:30 on the dot, I hope, is to do a masterclass style of streaming show to my Twitch platform that is kind of like a combination of a masterclass along with a blog style of outlet to talk about what it's like to be a film student. So to kind of give people, whoever steps foot into the stream or whoever manages to replay it as a highlight, to kind of give them some insight as to what it is to be going to film school. You know, whether it be a high school student that's thinking about going to film school or whoever's in film school right now and is trying to think about whether or not that they should go and do or if they should continue pursuing this, because trust me, I've been in that area. And what other type of things they're kind of doing with their life related to film. And also I'll keep tabs on the chat and see what kind of questions they might have that's related to film, that's related to what I'm doing in my life from a creative standpoint, from a professional standpoint, and just kind of rail it on together and hopefully, like I said, do something a little bit new to Twitch. Spidey Boy Shiven, how's it going? Thank you for dropping by the stream. Thank you for the follow, by the way. You followed while I was not streaming, but I did get that email notification, so thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Just wanted to kind of give you my thanks there. So this is episode 1, and I'm titling it "Let's Go Around the Room." So one thing that I'm already gonna let you in on the like I said, the ins and outs of film school is that right now I'm going to a film school. It's called Columbia College in Hollywood, located in Tarzana, California, which is literally like, it's part of the Los Angeles County. So you drive 20 minutes in almost any direction, you're going to hit one of the main famous areas of the LA area, whether it be the Valley, whether it be Hollywood itself or Santa Monica or something like that. You're probably a cool 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, depending on traffic, away from the beach. And right when you get off the freeway, there's a rehab center. So it's definitely Hollywood. With that said, and there goes my mic starting to dip down a little bit thanks to gravity. So with that said, I am currently a film student, and I've actually been a film student now for, I want to say, we are now going on 4 years, about 4.5 years or so, because I would take some intervals of taking a break from school, mainly during the summertime, and they expect that at this point, to the point where they're like, okay, don't even register going to film for classes if you're going to take the summer off, because often a lot of people do. So I'm already giving you a freebie there as to one of the things that a lot of film schools are probably going to be expected of you, is that they most of the time expect people not to come during the summer because it's hot. They want to take it off. Time, that's what I'm referring to, and they would rather just say, okay, instead of messing with the paperwork, most often than not, they're gonna have you just not register for classes. But I've been going to this film school, and one of the first things teachers do in their classes is to let's go around the room and introduce ourselves, talk about our emphasis, talk about what we want to do in the film profession. And what are your favorite films? Obviously, the usual suspect questions. So, what are your favorite films? What are your least favorite films? What do you use for inspiration? Yada, yada, yada. So, episode 1, I'm titling it "Let's Go Around the Room." And without sounding very self-indulgent and vain, and while at the same time reminding you that I'll be keeping track on the chat, so if you have any kind of questions pertaining to film, even if it has to do with one of my favorite what are my favorite films, least favorite films, fun stuff like that, go ahead and ask it in the chat, and I'll be paying attention to it to make sure that I am answering accordingly. But aside from that, as vain as it's gonna sound, episode 1 is going to be all about me. But I'm going to try to make it as interactive as possible, because seated somewhere in there are going to be some little pieces of information that is kind of useful for folks that are probably thinking about going to film school, or are considering film to be some kind of part of their career, or have ever shown some kind of interest in film. I just want some light to be shed on that to some capacity, and I'm hoping that maybe talking about myself will do that to an extent, because one thing that I should probably put out there about myself is that I am what I like to call a outgoing introvert. So what I mean by that is that I mostly tend to keep to myself until you get me started with a question that is very rooted in some of the passionate subjects that I care for. Film, arguably being one of them. Gaming is definitely going to be the other. If you watch any of my other broadcasts or highlights here on this Twitch channel, gaming is a huge part of my life. So I mainly keep to myself until you ask me what are you playing right now? What video games are you playing right now? What are your favorite games or your least favorite games? What's some of the things that you don't like about gaming? That kind of thing. Same exact type of material or criteria pertains to me in film, where I could be quiet all day, but once you ask me the right question about film or anything that has to do with that, I can go on for 4 hours. Now, even though I can go on for hours, I don't expect these film student school episodes to go on for very long. I'm trying to hit an average of about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. At times, depending on the subject matter, depending on how many people I have on chat, and depending on how much of a reception I get from this kind of platform, this new kind of show, will also have a slight little effect on the running time. We'll play it by ear, so to speak. So let me just check on the chat here. Do an ASMR stream. I mean, essentially, depending on the person that you ask, this could be considered an ASMR stream. Just an ASMR stream about film. I bet you've never seen that on Twitch before. About you, why not me? Because, Snicks, I call attention to you in every other stream imaginable. Okay, so, introductions. Get them out of the way. My name is David Ortega, also known as Dark Spider David, here on Twitch with the handle. I feel like eventually someone's gonna ask, whether it be on a repeat, on a comment on the broadcast, or maybe in the chat later. But the origin of that username, Dark Spider David, very plain and simple. Dark is for Dark Knight, Batman, my favorite DC character, and then Spider's obviously for Spider-Man, my favorite Marvel character. Combined with my name, Dark Spider David, and it just kind of took off from there. So I'm known as Dark Spider David on most of my interactive platforms, whether it be YouTube or Twitch, mainly Twitch these days. But my formal name, my Christian name, or my birth certificate name is David Ortega. I am 28 years old. I'll be turning 29 in August, and my current goal in life, in terms of profession, in terms of film, is to be a director. Over time, that kind of transformed into being a writer-director, or some would also characterize that as being an auteur. So what that means is that I mainly want to model myself after, if you know anything about film, you've probably already heard of these names. Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino. I would even go as far as to say Edgar Wright, who feel much more comfortable in directing the material that they write. That's not to say that ever so often I wouldn't want to direct something that I've never written or have never really peeked into before, because I definitely want to grow as a director. And I think at least this is one of my personal kind of anecdotes, is that I would want to grow as a director directing material that I've never written. So I would want to eventually have someone come to me with a script, or right now, and I guess I'll shed a little bit of light here, and I'm jumping the gun, unfortunately, but I'm hoping that I don't go off on a tangent. But right now, like I said, I'm a film student, and I'm taking several different classes. Right now, I'm taking 2 classes that are categorized as electives, so they're not 100% needed for me to graduate from the class, but they do provide some insight. One of them is literally, quite frankly, a history class, but it's the subject of the history is on a director, and that director happens to be Francis Ford Coppola, whose birthday was recently. It was actually, I think, the day after my first class that was done remotely via the internet. And hold on, I just want to make sure that everything's working good over here on my computer. All right, good. So that's one of the classes that I'm taking. And then the other class is score composition. For those of you who are not familiar with the term, a score is actually that musical soundtrack for a film, but it's the orchestral type. So it's not like a compilation of songs like whenever, like for example, when you get a musical and you have all those different songs, that's a soundtrack. The score would be more so of that orchestration that gets composed for the scenes in the film. There I go. Non sequitur. Uh, but those are the two classes that I'm taking remotely right now because I express genuine interest in some of those areas. Fun fact, I actually, at one point, before I settled on director, at one point I actually did tease the idea when I was a little younger about being a composer because I actually have a habit, or actually I have a passion for listening to musical scores, mostly from film, ever so often from gaming. In fact, I have right now a slight little addiction to the Final Fantasy VII remake soundtrack. I mean, the original soundtrack is good, but it's the remake soundtrack that has a full orchestration that I just can't get enough of, and that's what I'm listening on repeat right now. But on other occasions, I have a tendency to listen to John Williams, Hans Zimmer, James Newton Howard, James Horner. God, who else? John Powell. I noticed that an awful lot of composers' names start with J. I think those are. So if you want to be a very prolific and accomplished movie composer, your first name needs to start with J, from what I can tell, or be German, like Hans Zimmer. And there's several different other German composers that are great. But from time to time, I catch myself listening to scores on the way to work or on the way to school when I'm driving. And that's typically not what you have some people do. That's something that I have a tendency to do. And this stemmed from when I was very young. Whether it be with musical composition, film composition, film score composition, or with the very notion of how awesome it is to make a movie. It all stemmed from when I want to say as far back as I can, the farthest that I can remember where I was starting to develop an actual love for film was, whether it be, like I said, from a musical standpoint, from a directorial standpoint, screenwriting standpoint, or just in general, was more so 14 or 15. I mean, I loved movies when I was a kid, but when I took this passionate approach to where I was watching the DVD extras more than the actual film itself, was back around when I was 14 or 15. So around the 2004, 2005 era, actually, between 13 and 15 is when I really, really started, when I was really starting to love film as from that perspective, not just like, oh, I love this movie, because you talk to anybody, there's several different movies that they love, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be a film director. I was loving movies as a natural kid up until I was 13 or 14, where I was like, you know what, maybe this is what I want to do, instead of being an NBA player or a graphics engineer, or a computer scientist, as I would call it when I was a kid, because that was one of the things. Those were a handful of the professions that I kind of teased about. Yes, you heard right, an NBA player. Yeah, how wonderful that worked out for me. So it was around the time that Spider-Man 2, a handful of other movies came out, and the home release was made with the DVDs, and eventually that transitioned over the Blu-rays. But I would find myself just, habitually watching the extras of how that one scene was made, how the score was composed, how the visual effects were made, how, every nook and cranny that I could find on the DVD. Even back when, I don't know if some of you remember this, but how sometimes, I don't think they even do this with Blu-rays anymore, but on DVDs, they would hide Easter eggs where you would have to press the directional buttons on the remote a certain way to find an Easter egg. The Spider-Man trilogy, most notably Spider-Man 2 on the DVDs, you would have to press the directional buttons a certain pattern to highlight something on the DVD menu that was just like off to the side, like it wasn't an official button. It would highlight something in the background, and you would be like, what the hell is that? Press OK, and that would start up an Easter egg. whether it be unused visual effects or an outtake or a little mini feature that you otherwise would not have realized was there while checking out the content of the DVD. And I would do that. That, or I wouldn't find it, but I would go online to try to figure out if this DVD had such a thing, and I would uncover it and I would watch it. And then when I wasn't getting any new DVDs and I was going through kind of like a lull, I would do the one thing that I never thought I would do. I would watch the movie with the commentary on, and I would listen to the director, whether it be Sam Raimi with those Spider-Man movies, or the visual effects artists, some of the actors talk about their experiences making these films. And I mean, just talking about it right now, it makes me want to go through my collection and be like, which movie have I not watched with the commentary to learn some insight in real time as I'm watching the film? Because it's frankly just like listening to some podcasts. And recently, podcasts have become a huge part of my life, especially when I'm driving, especially when I'm going through a tough time, or I'm going through a time that requires me to do something for an extensive amount of time, whether it be working out, going to school, going to work. Podcasts are very integral to me because not only are they entertaining, but they're also a huge part of my life. And sometimes some of those podcasts talk about movies, movie reviews. That's another thing that I like to do. And another thing that I like to use towards my way of thinking when it comes to how I want to write, how I want to direct, how I want to just approach different areas of the field. I do have a PDF that I want to refer to. So again, it was in around that age bracket that I started developing my love for film, and then as time went on, like I said, I teased with the area of being a visual effects artist for film, being a score composer. I don't know why I can't say it. Score composer for film. And then eventually I settled on directing because, first of all, the visual effects artists, I love I don't know why, but there was just some slight disconnect with wanting to be a visual effects artist. Even though every time I saw a visual effects artist going to work about bringing out the detail and the skin of a computer generated character, especially in the Lord of the Rings films, and then other different little things that they would do, it would always fascinate me. But eventually I just came to a realization that it would fascinate me as a viewer and not as like someone being in front of the computer and being like that for hours. It didn't turn me off, but I just didn't feel like it connected there with me. And then with score composition, I saw a musical sheet with all the notes that those composers go through and write down as they're watching the dailies for film, and I was like, nope. I was like, nope, I am not doing that. That just, oh my god, my fingers just hurt and cramped from seeing how many notes they were modifying on the fly as I was watching. I was like, no, I can't do that. But the one part of movie making that always fascinated me, not just as a viewer, but at the end of every time that I would watch it, made me go, I want to do that. Yeah, I want to do that. I have no qualms wanting to do this. Was directing. I would always see these directors, Gore Verbinski with the Pirates films, Sam Raimi with the Spider-Man films, and then as I got more and more into the stuff, I would eventually start to fall in love, quite frankly, with films that I really did not care for or even liked when I was a kid, because I was like, this is boring. I was a stupid kid. I wanted to see Spider-Man flying in action. I wanted to see the X-Men. I wanted to see dead pirates come to life in those Pirates of the Caribbean films. But over time, I just started to watch more and more movies that I know for a fact 8-year-old, 9-year-old me would have been like, this is boring. And that's when it started to getting into the more sophisticated directors like Martin Scorsese, David Fincher, and now with this history class, Francis Ford Coppola. There's some movies that I watched that I really enjoyed that I know for a fact, even like 10 years ago, I would have found restless and boring. Like, I would find myself kind of itching and being like, okay, is this thing over? Movies that I know for a fact aren't even that long. They're like an hour and 45 minutes, but I would just feel, it would just feel like a trudge for me when I was a kid. Now I appreciate it because I just have these new set of glasses, metaphorically at least, that let me see it in a new light, not just as a viewer, but as a director who's trying to absorb as much knowledge and inspiration as I possibly can. And thankfully, now recently, Coppola's one of the ones doing that because The Godfather is that shit. It really is. It's one of those movies that stood the test of time, has become an icon of cinema. And to be honest, it's sometimes my taste in film, and I'm about to get into favorite films and least favorite films, and I'll use this as a way to kind of segue into that. Um, my taste in films is a very weird combination of like what is usually popular, what usually an awful lot of people like, whether it be whether those people be casual viewers, casual movie watchers, like some of the people that I know, or diehard cinephiles, or film critics. There's, like, as Tony Stark from Spider-Man: Homecoming would say, there's a little gray area right there in the middle, and that's where I operate, because there's some movies that are big cinematic masterpieces, or like important for the landscape of film, and I just personally don't care for. Gone with the Wind, I want to say, is probably right there where I'm like, yeah, I know that it has a cultural significance, but I don't give a damn. Frankly, dear, I don't give a damn about your movie. Yeah. However, sometimes I will have to jump on that bandwagon if I feel the need to do so. The Godfather was that movie that I watched recently for the very first time, and I loved it. I loved it. I wish I could say I didn't love it, because I want to be that contrarian, because there's so many films where I am the contrarian, where I was like, so many people love, and I'm just kind of like, I couldn't get into it. Godfather, frankly, it had something that I developed a love for over time, that I can just go on for hours and hours and hours, and that's that plot where you take a character and how they are at the beginning, and this isn't just for film; it's also for television. I mean, Breaking Bad is a defining example of this sort of kind of complex plot, is taking a character and making him or her just completely not at all like that at the end, but in a fascinating, natural, cohesive, and very well thought out way. Breaking Bad was able to do that with Walter White. The Godfather was able to do that with Michael Corleone, because you see his first scene in that at the beginning of that movie, and then you see him at the last scene of the movie, and like, I'm not gonna spoil it, obviously, for anybody who might be watching this on playback and not, have never seen The Godfather. But he's very clearly not the same person, both visually, metaphorically, spiritually, mentally. And considering that the movie is in fact 3 hours, so it's a big boy. It's able. Okay, I can tell you right now, I did not feel the 3 hours while watching that film, and it was able to pace it in a way where you can see this character become that person that, frankly, he did not say he was going to be at the very beginning. How he goes about that, you'll have to check it out in The Godfather if you have not done so already, because I truly feel bad for myself that I have never seen that film prior to this Coppola class, and that all goes double, no pun intended, for part 2, which I'll be checking out hopefully this weekend, because that's part of our assignment next week. And also with this class going on, going back to what I was saying about my taste in film changing now over the years, when I started to develop this passion for film back when I was a teenager, is that sometimes there's some films that I might have not liked because of where I saw them, that now rewatching them, I'm able to tweak my perspective in a way where I'm like, okay, maybe my environment, maybe my location, maybe where I am mentally in my life could have a different viewpoint on this film. And going back to the Coppola class, there's a movie that we just recently had to watch, or some people had to watch, I had to rewatch because I've already seen this film, called The Conversation, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Gene Hackman, who some of you comic book fans or superhero fans might know as Lex Luthor from the original 1978 Christopher Reeve Superman. There's a little tie there. Uh, this movie I saw in one of my script analysis classes or one of my God, it was like it was also a history class, but it wasn't centered on this director. It was more so on themes and stuff like that. But we watched it on campus, and I don't know why, but we finished it, and I didn't like it. I didn't hate it, but I was just kind of like, it was whatever. We watched it again here at home because of the situation for this class, and listening much more carefully to what the characters would say, paying attention to the details, focusing on the mannerisms and the body language of this main character played by Hackman, who was spectacular in this role. I was like, you know what? I think I really, really like this movie. It's one of the finer movies I've seen this year, at least. That I know it's not from this year. It's from 1974, I believe. But just, as in terms of my library of films that I've been watching this year, I'm like, especially since we can't go out to the movie theater, which is obviously one of my biggest heartbreaks of this year, is that it's been a really, as the kids say, a good minute since I've seen a movie in theaters, and for good reason, because they're all shut down, unfortunately. And I believe the last movie that I watched in theaters, because going to the theater is quite honestly one of my passions, one of my loves. It's one of my pastimes. Baseball is often referred to America's pastime. My pastime, my sanctuary. Don't tell my mom, but my church, because she's gonna find that sacrilegious. Is the movie theater. And it's a very love-hate relationship, because the actual concept of the movie theater I love. I hate the people that go to movie theaters nowadays. I made a whole 20 to 30 minute video on YouTube. It's archived in there somewhere about what the problem is these days with movie theaters, or at least what it was. That's actually one of the things that I'm hoping changes when everything, hopefully very soon, goes back to normal with the coronavirus situation, is that hopefully people will appreciate the public places that they would go to now that they've been taken away from them. They'll realize how much they've been taking for granted, the little finer things. And I'm hoping that maybe I doubt it. Never mind. I doubt it. But in a perfect world, people who would be obnoxious and annoying at the movie theaters, whether it be with their phones or with them talking or with their babies or whatever, I'm hoping that maybe this situation with the coronavirus will make them go like, okay, maybe I should stop doing that shit. Yeah, or at least do something about refining people's attitudes towards that. Snakes, I keep forgetting you play baseball. Wow. That still surprises me that you like baseball. I would never expect you to like something like baseball with that. But yeah, the movie theater, with that aside, the movie I love going to the movies, especially with my girlfriend. She's my audience when it comes to having that spur of the moment review that I have after the movie once the credits are rolling and we're kind of just sitting there and it's just like, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know, you might have to give me some time to marinate on this, or maybe I can give you a straightforward, like, I did not like that, like I did with Fantastic Four. I remember writhing in my seat, just like, that happened. Of course, that hasn't happened for a good while now, due to the circumstances around the world. The last movie that I saw in theaters was Birds of Prey. The Harley Quinn movie. Now, frankly, that was not a bad movie. I can't say that I liked it that much, but it was a step in the right direction. Like I have a review. Do I have a review on YouTube? No, I don't. I mean, I talked about it on my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, by the way. But I don't think I posted a formal review of Birds of Prey. Like I said, I think I tweeted it. Tweeted a very brief review. I thought it was pretty fun. It was pretty decent. I wouldn't rewatch it, but if it's on TV, I'll catch it. I'll be like, oh, hey, it's Birds of Prey. With that said, like I said, Birds of Prey, that was back in mid-February before the shutdown started to become a bit more rampant. Some of the more popular areas like Los Angeles, especially Los Angeles, because that's gonna hurt the most when it comes to the film community. Because you have your OGs up in there, the Cinerama, where I actually had the privilege with my girlfriend on my birthday slash anniversary to watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in the Cinerama. So that was very surreal. Yeah, so that was hit pretty hard, and then started to kind of take over the state, and then eventually we have some of the more local movie theaters here, mainly from the branch Cinemark's shutting down. So yeah, that needless to say, that hurt me an awful lot. But hopefully, this could be kind of an inversion in a sense where now maybe we can watch some movies that we've missed. I've never seen Apocalypse Now, but I have a 4K set here in my house, so I'll definitely be popping that in, especially for the Coppola class since that's one of his films. I have Unforgiven in 4K. I've been wanting to check that out. And then a handful of other movies that I've never. Oh, actually, recently I watched Big Lebowski for the first time, and to be quite honest, I think I watched it on the weekend. And if in any other situation that weekend I would have gone to the movie theaters to watch one of the movies that are happening now, but I wouldn't have watched The Big Lebowski, or I wouldn't have had time to watch The Big Lebowski then. So, trying to look at it from that perspective. Snake Sabers in the chat says the last movie I saw in the movie theater, so I'm assuming that's what he meant to say, Godzilla King of the Monsters. I'm a big Godzilla fan. Now, Snicks, that's a pretty long way back. That was back in May of last year. So you mean to tell me you have not seen a movie in the movie theater since May of last year? Because this whole shutdown thing didn't start until, like I said, the end of February. So that wasn't going on. You mean to tell me that you weren't regularly going to the movie theater? Is it because of how movie theaters be nowadays or were nowadays? So yeah, so my taste in film, ranges. Obviously I try to give everything a chance because, to be honest, going into The Godfather, I thought it was gonna be contrarian and be like, okay, this is the movie that everybody talks about. This is the number 2 rated movie on IMDb. Swear to God, you go on IMDb right now, The Godfather's at number 2. Number 1 is Shawshank Redemption, which is kind of funny to me because I never seen Shawshank Redemption. Definitely being added to the list, but I would figure something like Pulp Fiction or The Dark Knight to be number 1 because those are more talked about films. I hardly hear that many people talk about Shawshank Redemption that they do with like Pulp Fiction. You know what I mean? I think Pulp Fiction is at number 3 or number 4, so it's definitely in the top 5. At number 2 is The Godfather. Frankly, coming out of it, I was like, I can definitely see what's number 2. Wow. So yeah, my my movie tastes vary. So if I was to reach into the recesses of my mind right now, especially after a very hard 7-hour shift at work with a brand new work model or system model that we're trying to adapt to with the COVID-19 problem, because I'm trying to focus and kind of structure my mind right now as it is. I would probably say some of my favorite films. So I would probably say the first 2 Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. They're some of those movies that the wonder has never been stripped away whenever I see Spider-Man swing in those films, and that feeling of wonder. I mean, that's not to say that I'm going to make a Spider-Man film myself, even though I would love to. So many Spider-Man movies have been made that I'm kind of like, I don't know if I even would want to tackle that. Such a giant. As much as I love Spider-Man, I'm just so scared of screwing it up. But that feeling of wonder that I got from those original Spider-Man films, I want to be able to replicate that. And so that's where I realized that, I got to put those movies on the list as at least the first 2. 3, I like things about it, but there's obviously several other things where I'm like, yeah, you guys ran out of steam. Frankly, if we're tackling trilogies at this point, the first 2 Nolan films, of course, from the Batman trilogy, Batman Begins and Dark Knight, The Dark Knight. Dark Knight Rises, I do, and of course, because I do have some acute OCD, something that a fun fact, about me. even though I don't even know what's so fun about it. Um, I knew I needed to buy the entire trilogy when I bought it in 4K, but if I was to put some of those movies on the list of my favorite films of all time, I would probably put Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. And if we are to expand over to Nolan's filmography, I would definitely take Inception and Memento, throw them on there. The original Matrix, put it out there. If we're talking more recently, Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I recently rewatched for like the fourth time over at my girlfriend's place because it was just on net, I was rummaging through Netflix, found it, and I was just like, screw it, I want something to play in the background while we made breakfast. And I ended up watching it more than helping with breakfast. Like my girlfriend's family was making the breakfast, and I was over here like watching Spider-Verse for like the fourth time and still being taken with it. So we have that. We have The Social Network and a handful of other Fincher films, like Fight Club. I would definitely put out there. District 9 is a big one for me. I love District 9. I love the way sci-fi is handled in that manner with District 9, how real sci-fi can be made. It's such a... Oh, God. Blomkamp, dude, you gotta come back. Because District 9 was so awesome, and then everything that came afterwards... I'm not gonna say it was bad, but there hasn't been another District 9. Let's just say that. Not another District 9. So yeah, District 9, obviously the Toy Story films that just keep getting better and better. To be honest, I'll say they peaked with 3. Toy Story 3 is probably the best one. Toy Story 4 did not topple Toy Story 3, but it was still one of my favorite movies from last year, so I was like, damn, how can they do it at the 4th film? Yeah, fuck it, let's throw, what's it called? What's the big one that I just mentioned? God damn it. From let's going back to Scorsese. Scorsese. Hot take. I actually prefer Casino over Goodfellas. I mean, Goodfellas is great, but there's something about Casino that I'm like, I can go back to scenes from that movie over and over and over. Goodfellas, handful, but not as much as there's not as much replay value for me than with Casino, strangely. It's weird, right? And while we're staying on Scorsese, there's something that I really love about Gangs of New York. Maybe it's like, maybe it's the fact that it hits that sweet spot in the fact that it's a period piece where I'm like, there's something modernistic and old school about it at the same time, and also it was made in the 2000s, so it's a very good blend of a lot of things, stylistically and thematically. I don't know. It's very tough to kind of explain, but we got that. Then we got Spielberg. Come on, Spielberg. So yeah, Jurassic Park, Jaws. I can rewatch. In fact, I think we got the 45th anniversary coming up this year with Jaws, and I was on BestBuy.com just browsing, and I may or may not have pre-ordered the Steelbook 45th anniversary of Jaws on there. So yeah, we got that going. Yeah. Sticking with Spielberg, then we got Jurassic Park, got Jaws. And then, of course, you got the Indiana Jones trilogy. The Indiana Jones trilogy. That I absolutely love. Going back to, once again, trilogies. I mean, original Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Throw them on there. That's as far as I'll go for Star Wars, to be quite perfectly honest. Keeping it in theme here with trilogies, where is my 4K Back to the Future set? That's the only reason why I have not bought the trilogy on Blu-rays, because I can feel it. I can feel that there's going to be a 4K set on the horizon. It could be this year, because where are we at now? 35th anniversary. 35th anniversary 4K set? Or are you waiting for the 40-year anniversary to do the 4K set? Do it, guys. And I'm also waiting on Indiana Jones. I think Indiana Jones, we don't have 4K yet. Just recently this year, we got a month ago with the release of Rise of Skywalker, we finally got the original trilogy on 4K. Actually, I have it over there. Um, Now going over to, let's see. I'm trying to stay away from genre films at least. Oh, Shaun of the Dead. I love Shaun of the Dead. Love the Cornell trilogy overall, but if I had to pick one out of that trilogy, it would be Shaun of the Dead. That's the one that I can rewatch over and over and over. The other two I can watch a handful of times, but there's something about Shaun of the Dead that just feels so original because it's the first one. So Edgar Wright is definitely an influence for me when it comes to kinetic camera movement, and one of my inspirations because I actually do want to make movies that feel kinetic to kind of keep the pace going. So if I ever do make like that 2.5 hour, 3 hour epic, then it never feels like that time. That's ultimately one of my goals as a director, is to make sure that if I'm making a long movie, it doesn't feel like a long movie. um. So yeah, it's a cop out, but it's very very tough to give a very straightforward answer of of what are my favorite films. I just try to go into my mind, just verbally vomit a bunch of movie titles that I know that are of films that I can rewatch over and over or have had a profound experience on me, and those are a handful of some. There's definitely many, many more. There's definitely more that I just can't think of off the top of my head right now, but that's just a taste. And maybe, I'll figure them out as this stream show goes along and more episodes get broadcasted and uploaded, and hopefully I'll be able to rummage through my mind again and be able to tell you guys some of my more favorite films, especially if they tie into the theme of that episode. For now, that's all that I can think of. Now, if we were to go to the other side of the spectrum and think about movies that I don't like, it's a similar case where it's tough to pinpoint specific movies, but if I was to paint in very broad strokes, I would probably say almost every animated or animated hybrid film that's been released in the past 15 years. And I say almost. Almost. Dead Man Walk Dead. What did I say? Okay, Dead Man Walk 32 just subscribed over to my YouTube channel. To be honest, okay, so my main outlet is Twitch, but what I'm thinking about doing is now taking these episodes and uploading them or re-uploading them to YouTube to just kind of spread a little bit of awareness over there. I have a YouTube channel. I might as well use it. It's just that Twitch will be the focus, but I think now I'm gonna take my some Twitch streams, not all of them, but some Twitch streams, mainly this film student school stream series, and start posting it on YouTube. Which is why I posted that channel, Snake Sabers. If you're figuring that out, I'm not formally going back to YouTube, but I'm just gonna use my YouTube channel to maybe, because at the end of the day, YouTube is another Google search engine, especially since Google owns them. So I will be taking these episodes and re-uploading them over to YouTube after the stream gets done. I don't know if I'll do one tonight, or I'll do this one tonight, or maybe over the course of time I'll provide a gap. So hey, if you want to watch live or watch it first, then you watch it on Twitch, and then like few days later you watch it on YouTube for free or whatever the hell you want to consider it. I think that'll be later down the line. I think later on tonight I might upload this on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, hi. But this is first going up as a live broadcast over on my Twitch channel. But I said before that alert popped up, I was talking about that in terms of least favorite or hated films. Like I said, most animated films, not all, but most films, animated films, or animated live-action hybrid films released in the past 15 years. Like I said, if I'm painting in broad strokes, so Alvin and the Chipmunks, that entire series, fuck it, all right? I was trying to refrain from using harsh language in this because, like I said, I'm trying to seem professional and separated from my usual gaming streams, but there's no other word that can kind of evoke the same emotion that I feel about those movies. The Emoji Movie. Yeah, like I said, animated. Almost every animated film released in the last 10 years. You got Emoji. The most recent culprit that was thankfully not really released in theaters because of what's going on, and went straight to VOD where it should stay or it deserved to go. The Trolls movies, the animated Trolls movies, because almost all of these new animated films are catered to millennial kids, or at least these new kids. What is it called? Generation Z or whatever it's called. Kids with these shorter attention spans than the usual. And, to keep them occupied, to make sure that they're not running around. And what makes them happy more than anything? A soundtrack. That new Emojis movie. I mean, I'm sorry, the Emojis. You got Emojis movie on my brain now, Snicks. Thanks. But the new Trolls movie, it's literally just a soundtrack with visuals attached to it. That's all that it is. But that's all that it is. Anyways, like I said, there's very few films to kind of, be able to put specifically into this list. But like I said, almost all of those animated movies, the kind of the Minions movies are like Despicable Me, because the original Despicable Me, was decent. I actually kind of like that one. After a while, Universal knew what kind of cash cow they had on their hands with the Minions, and that's where they're like, yeah, let's make more of that, and let's put more music in there for them to dance to. And like I said, most, because one of my favorite trilogies in the animated film, collective is the How to Train Your Dragon. Obviously, Toy Story, but How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. I actually love those movies. So those are some of the few animated films to come on in the last 15 years that were actually pretty great and original. And that trilogy is in 4K, sitting in my collection right over there. So there you go. Along with, like I said, Toy Story, Spider-Verse. They just don't make them like they used to. They just really, really don't. So that's just kind of a quick glimpse as to what I like and don't like when it comes to films. Hopefully that's a good way to also kind of shed some light as to what I look for in films, at least from my perspective. It could be very different from various other people's, obviously. So when it comes to movies that I love, or even TV shows that I love, that, change in character from beginning to end is really, really fascinating to me. Having a group of characters with just insurmountable amount of charisma and chemistry with one another, I love, because it just kind of hooks me, so I'm in there for the ride with these characters. On the other side of things, movies that I hate, any movie that ends with a dance number, any movie that's just pandering, whether it be to, like I said, kids with the colorful lights and the music, yeah, and not really focusing on the story. And then if we were to get a little bit more deep, with I'll just say social issues that are going out down now in the community and in society in general, where a movie panders to that instead of focusing on the story. I hate that, because story and character comes first with a film. I mean, I know that often, and I'm definitely gonna spend more time on this on a future episode of Film Student School, but one little freebie I'm going to throw out there is that you're often going to hear in film school, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say with your work, with your music, with your directing, with your screenplay, with your art, etc., etc. And I'm not going to lie, I'm in a tough spot of what I'm trying to say. Right now, I feel more pulled towards great stories and great characters, and one of my main focus / goals is to write a great story, write a great character, create a great character, make that character appealing to people, and maybe that message will come secondhand. And I'm hoping that's something that I'm gonna be able to. I really, really, really don't want to say the word teach, because I'm just a film student, and I'm just hoping to be a a surveyor of information or a conduit of information over to whoever's watching this. Whether it's live like Snick Sabers is doing right now or on playback as an archived highlight here on Twitch or a future upload or a current upload over on YouTube. I'm hoping that whoever's watching right now, you take away from hearing a film school student's thoughts during a very unprecedented time that we never thought we would happen, but here we are walking around the side, on the streets with masks and gloves on. Needless to say, it's pretty surreal. I love writing stories, says Snick Sabers. Oh, okay, cool. I mean, I gotta be honest. Do you think maybe we should create like a Discord channel or a Discord little thing for like stories to be published and stuff like that? Because I would be kind of interesting hearing a little bit of that. That should be very, very interesting. You wouldn't mind? All right, cool. So we'll have to talk. For now, I'm actually going to go ahead and bring episode 1 down to a close. But before I do, first of all, I want to thank anybody who watches this on playback. Like I said, either as an archive stream over on Twitch or as an upload on YouTube. Thank you for reaching the end of the video, or at least watching a good chunk of the video, and I really hope that you enjoyed. I really hope that you find I hope that you find this interesting to a certain degree, because it's just an idea that I'm running with because I felt pretty passionate about it. It wasn't like an idea that I thought, oh, that'd be interesting, and then the day afterwards I was kind of like, maybe not. I don't know. I'm just gonna stick with gaming. No, I actually want to make this a weekly thing. And I want this to be an outlet for someone else who was probably thinking, film school is in a really weird spot right now, because one of the things that I want to talk about in future episodes is, what kind of interest do you have in film? How can film school benefit, or even I would say not benefit those interests? As a director, as a writer, as an actor, what I have learned so far in the past 4 years of going to a film school. And, I don't want this to obviously be a slam on film school, a smear on film school, whether it be the specific one that I go to. I'm obviously not going to disclose that kind of stuff because I want to look at the more positive and more informative and more fruitful things about what film school has taught me, both on campus for the majority of the time when we were going, versus now how it is in the current model, being via remote access and remote conferences and the sort. So some of the subjects that I want to tackle in the future episodes for this kind of little streaming type of experiment is, what is film school? What are your interests in film? I'll try to, obviously the first one that I'm going to approach this from as a writer and director, but, taking away from some colleagues that I had in some of the classes from the past to some of the ones that I currently have in the present, from an acting standpoint, from a sound designer standpoint, from a cinematographer, one of the big ones, cinematographer standpoint, what it's like, what's it like to go to film school with those interests in mind, what you can benefit and not benefit from film school that even, we have to tackle head on, as much as they, some people don't really want to talk about that. And then just take away information from that and how you can benefit that to what's going on right now to utilize the time that you got, whether it be because you're not going to set school or you have to postpone applying for the film school, or you were thinking about going but financial hardships got in the way, or furthermore you had a job and you either got let go, furloughed, however you want to terminalize it. That's even a word. And now what you can do with that free time, considering that now you had this interest about going to film school, but now everything's just kind of in stasis. Yeah, let's talk. That's pretty much what I want to do. I'm not gonna. There was a part of me that wanted to disclose the topics like a syllabus, but I'll leave you guys guessing a little bit, just a tiny bit. For now, I'll say that on next week's episode, we're gonna be talking about whether or not you really need film school, because often that's something that people who want to be a director, a writer, actress, actor, you name it, screenwriter, do you need film school to get into that? Why can't I just write a script? Or why can't I just pull money together and go shoot something? We'll go ahead and talk about that on next week's episode of Film Student School. I wanted to do the voice at least once before it finally dies out on me. After all the talking I've been doing at work and now here in this 1 hour stretch, I think it's about time that I give this old pipe a rest, go get myself something to eat, and get back to my classes. And I'll give you guys some more information on the next one. For now, keep in touch, guys. Follow me on Twitter at DarkSpiderDavid. So you might see links in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, or you can, go to the About section on my Twitch channel, and you'll have links to my Twitter, my Instagram, and even the Discord if you want to join the Discord server that I have set up. It's mainly for gaming, but I'm thinking about creating a little film section where we can talk about movies that aren't particular to any genre. That don't just have to be Spider-Man movies, because I'm all about Spider-Man because it's called Dark Spider. I want to kind of stem it out and create something, well, more creative. I know that sounds redundant, but it's very interesting to me, and I kind of want to experiment a little bit with it. So, check that out on the About page. Otherwise, look me up on Twitter and Instagram at DarkSpiderDavid. Twitter is mainly where I'll be tweeting out certain things about that I have on my mind that pertain to either film or gaming, or even life in general, especially in the times that we're living with. Sometimes I might have a thing or two to say. And then over on Instagram, because I'm studying to be a director and screenwriter, ever so often I have a tendency to either post a clip from my Twitch channel or post, a photo that I took, because I like to sometimes take little photos or videos about, things that go down on my life from a cinematic standpoint. I figured like Instagram is actually one of the better platforms to do that on. So Instagram and Twitter at DarkSpiderDavid, DarkSpider. Yeah, I said that right. David, all one word, no caps. I hope you guys will give me a follow. If you like, check out the pages. That sounded needy. That really sounded needy. Wow. Again, my mind is kind of rambling at this point. I'm running a little bit on fumes. But check out the pages. If everything looks interesting, hit up the follow. If not, it's fine. But, hope to see some of you guys there. Go over to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/DarkSpiderDavid if you're watching this on YouTube. Link will be in the description. I stream now. Pretty much I'm making a habit of streaming now every Tuesday with a game, Thursday with Film Student School, either Friday or Saturday. Those might flip back and forth depending on what's happening with my social plans. With another game, and then Sundays with what I like to call Simulation Sundays. Well, I'll be streaming some simulation type games. Right now I'm actually playing a game very relevant to this Film Student School called The Movies. It's a PC game where you get to manage a studio, and it's quite addictive to me. And I'm hoping to make that a brand new gaming series over on my Twitch channel every Sunday. I'm trying to stick between the 7 to 8 o'clock range, but I'll give you guys updates when those times may vary, and I'll post those updates either on my Twitter or my Discord, so you guys can keep in touch there. Otherwise, that does it for me. Thank you guys for tuning into the first episode ever of Film Student School, and I hope to catch you guys on the next one. I don't have an ending screen yet for this show, but I'll definitely have one on the next one. Snake Sabers, thank you so much for dropping on by. He only said one thing, but Spidey Boy Shivan for saying hi, and I hope to catch some of you guys on the next one. Take care.